Welcome to Dementia Dialogue. Stories bring us together and help us to understand one another. Our podcast gives people with lived experience of dementia a way to share their stories with each other and the broader community in order to increase understanding and connection and decrease stigma. In this episode of Dementia Dialogue, the fourth in a series of conversations about intergenerational engagement, I speak with guests Albin Soni, a student at the University of British Columbia, also known as UBC, Mario Gregorio, a passionate advocate living with dementia, and Dr. Lillian Hung, associate professor in the School of Nursing at UBC. During this episode, we speak about the inspiration for Innovation in Dementia and Aging Lab, also known as Idea Lab, its goals, and how Mario, who is a patient engagement partner with Idea Lab, and Albin are involved as mentor-mentee respectively. Mario and Albin go on to discuss the process of ideation and creation of their technology projects through patient-oriented research. That also has the added benefit of intergenerational engagement. They also speak about their motivation to get involved in Idea Lab. Dr. Hung also speaks about the importance of inclusion in their research and making the work important for everyone, leaving no one behind. I am your host, Lisa Loiselle, and I hope you enjoy my conversation with Albin, Mario, and Dr. Hung.
My name is Mario Gregorio, and I was diagnosed with vascular cognitive impairment or dementia 15 years ago. So I became an advocate after I was diagnosed in 2008, and sometime in 2020, Lillian created this Idea Lab, and I eagerly volunteered to be one of their patient engagement partners. And since then, I've been involved in mentoring students, letting them know about the activities for daily living of people living with dementia, how to live well with dementia, and anything that the students may be able to learn from a person who have lived dementia. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Mario, and a big welcome to you. Albin, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Lisa, for having me on. It's really a pleasure to be here. My name is Albin Soni. I just finished my third year of undergraduate degree studies at UBC, studying biomedical engineering. I'm a student researcher at Idea Lab. I've been here for a little over a year now, and it's really fun. I really enjoy it. I'm happy to talk about it today.
Wonderful. Welcome, and thanks for being here. I know as an undergraduate student, it's always a busy time.
Yeah, but we make time for what matters.
Oh, awesome. Okay, and our third guest is Dr. Lillian Hung, and she's going to introduce herself. And then I'd also like to hear from you as the creator of Idea Labs, what it's all about.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Lisa. And it's always fun to speak with Mario and Albin. These are fabulous, wonderful people that we work very closely with in the lab. So I have the lab since, like what Mario said, 2020, and the lab is funded by the government. I hold a Canada Research Chair in Senior Care that provide the funding that we have the lab in the School of Nursing at UBC. The lab was developed to bring students from all different disciplines. So in UBC that we have nursing students, medicine, faculty medicine, psychology, engineering, because we do technology. So we try to bring like students who come from different background, and so we work together. And the lab is a little bit unique in terms of nobody else does this, that we invite older adults, and especially people with dementia. We have them as researchers. So we do research together. You can see that Mario is a co-researcher who does many projects with us. And Albin is a student researcher. He has also worked in multiple projects. So it's a lot of fun when you have the older adult work with the students. And I think we can talk a little bit more about the fun that we have together And it is an academic lab that we have academic work, like we have make sure the research that we do will have like scientific rigor, but at the same time, we really valued about what we do and how we go about doing it. So relationship is something that we always focused. Yeah.
So this is an episode about intergenerational engagement. Was the Ideas Lab created with the idea of this being intergenerational engagement as well? Is that something that you thought about?
So yes and no. Yes, because the work that we do is what we call, it was not called intergenerational research. It's called patient-oriented research. So the Canadian government is very interested in bringing patient partners, like people who are impacted by the research, to be part of the research. So making sure the research will be relevant to them, right? So that's what we do. Like the lab, we only do patient-oriented research. So every time when we have a student coming that they said they want to join the lab, that's the first question that I ask them, that this is a different kind of lab. We work with older adults. You sure this is something that you would like? And we see older adults like as equal researchers, that we work together. And yeah, so and essentially like students are a young age like Albin in UBC, and people living with dementia, older adults, and they are older. And so then that makes the intergenerational work. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a happy benefit, you know, of the lab, because you're bringing these two different age groups together. And I know intergenerational doesn't necessarily mean age specifically. It's just about, people coming together and sharing experiences. So Albin and Mario, I understand that the two of you work very closely together in the lab space. Do you want to maybe talk about that?
Okay, I can take the lead on this. Yes, I am involved with Idea Lab as a patient engagement partner. And as Lillian said, this is patient-oriented research. That is where the focus is. And we use a lot of researchers, students doing their master's, PhDs, and some volunteers. They just want to have a taste of what it is like university life. So we let them participate, or sometimes they observe. So as a patient partner for Idea Lab, oftentimes a student like Albin would say, oh, I have this idea. And then they would say, what do you think about this? And sometimes they would say, I have this concept. What do you think about this? For example, they said, oh, there is a doll that we are working on. How would it help people to use it? How do you want it to be friendly? From the physical aspect of the skin, or the blinking of the eyes of these robotic dolls, or sometimes how do you make the person with dementia aware that it received your question, and how do they acknowledge that they're about to answer? And it's sometimes even the look of the doll or the robot may be influenced by how the patient with dementia perceive it. Is it a toy, or is it like a person? And then you'll be surprised at the answers by some of the patient engagements. We have lots of patient engagement partners. So I'm not the only one that they have, and each one contributes on what they think. And we also have care partners, wherein people who are no longer able to speak, the family member, the daughter, the son, or even the wives can come in. They say, I think he like it this way, kind of thing. And that is how we look at things in trying to figure out how can people like me, who have been diagnosed with dementia for the last 15 years, I have the opportunity and the privilege to talk with care partners and people with living with dementia. And more or less, I have an insight about how do they feel? How do they want to respond? How do they want to be treated? How do you premise your question so that they better understand it? Those kind of little things, I think, is very important for researchers to understand, because most of the time the researchers come from the academic world, and they may want to get a glimpse of the thinking of what are they thinking? How do they perceive? If I ask a question, is it being received? How do I rephrase this question so that it is better understood by people with dementia? So that I think that helped a lot for students like Albin and the others who will do research on specific projects. So, I can give you a good example. Yesterday, Alvin is very involved with virtual reality, and then from there we were able to, from discussions and feedback from me and other patient partners, we were able to create a concept, and it was very exciting for them to say, oh, we didn't know that this is what you want, and then we created certain concepts wherein Albin will bring to his group again and discuss about it. So that is how the extent of my involvement with the Idea Lab. And I should also mention that Idea Lab also work in community incentives, community connections, because as you know, loneliness is one of the issues facing people with dementia and the older adults, and social connections. So we make sure that some of the projects we want to bring technology to the people in the underserved group of the community. And we've been doing this for almost 2 years, and so far we have great response, positive response from community centers and other seniors community centers.
Yeah, why don't you jump in, Albin?
Yeah, sure. I think Mario said it perfectly. The role that he plays at Idea Lab is so integral to everything that we do. He really is, to me, a mentor and someone who has the experience and the insight to inform really all the decisions that we make. And I think, like Mario, you talked about what we did yesterday. That's such a perfect example because we had an idea of how we wanted to do something. And after talking with Mario, we realized that that's not really the best way to go about it. It's not the most productive way to go about it. And there was a more efficient way we did it. And we ended up, having a big group meeting and we talked about it and we presented the information, revised information, and everybody really loved it. So really glad to have you, Mario,
Oh,
and to
thank you.
all of our other patient partners and family partners.
Thank you.
Albin, why did you get involved in this lab? Right? I'm sure there's lots of opportunities out there at the university for experience, to make money, whatever the reason is. Why did you get involved in this?
Yeah, so I have a little bit of a history with older adults. I've been volunteering in a care home since I was in the seventh grade. My mom is actually an RN and then she works in a care home. That was my first introduction. And I remember going into it back then. I really had no idea what to expect. I had no idea what to, how to interact with older adults because living here, my grandparents are in another country. So that was one of my first experiences with older adults. And since then, I've just realized that to treat them as equals and to be friendly. But then when I came to UBC, that's not a topic that we discuss in classes. As an engineering student, that's not something that we really consider when we're designing certain things. And when I heard about Idea Lab, I heard about it by chance. I thought, oh, this seems like something that I kind of interested in. I want to see what it's about. I talked to Dr. Hung and I got in my foot in the door. I had a chance to experience everything that we do. And I realized this is something that I wanted to explore in the future.
That's wonderful. And I understand in speaking with Mario before that the two of you work very, very closely together. Mario, what does that mean to you, having this connection with the students? And why do you get involved in these programs? I know you're an advocate and you do so much for the community, but there's also a lot of other people who are living with dementia that don't get involved. So why is this important to you? And what are the benefits for you?
I have a vested interest, if I might say so, about
True.
being involved because early in my after I was diagnosed, I was told that lead a purposeful life and be active And because I love research, I love working with the younger generations because I believe I can share something from my experience. So Lillian and I are actually have been working together since 2016 on national, international public forums. And from there, the relationship in research sort of grew. I love Lillian's very proactive ideas, and she looks so far ahead from other researchers. And I thought, this is where I might be able to contribute something. And I'm so glad I did, because I like to think that, as Lillian said, I am involved in other projects. I believe that the students most likely benefit from my experience of having dementia for the last 15 years. My doctor, when I was diagnosed, the doctor said 7 to 12 years. And here I am 15 years later, and I like to credit Idea Lab and some other researchers from University of British Columbia, Simon Fraser, University of Waterloo, and some other areas wherein they like to get some sort of feedback from people living with dementia. And also, nowadays, there more and more people are being from other ethnic communities that we are becoming aware about them, and yet we do not have as many research on how they can benefit from the medical care, because of the barriers like language, ethnicity, spirituality. So I'm so fortunate that University of Toronto had a project on bringing technology to people in the South Asian communities. And I'm so glad that they reached out. And I like to think that I was able to give them some sort of guidelines that they use in their projects. So that's one area wherein I like to be involved. And also, being a person who lived it and the stigma associated with the illness, I know how it is like. So bringing these issues forward to Lillian's group at Idea Lab, I think helped them to. A good example would be, how do we phrase this question when they do their surveys? And sometimes I tell them right away, that question does not work. It sounds simple, but most likely it's not going to be understood because it's in academic language kind of thing. So I think this is where the students benefit. And at the same time, for me, I was able to contribute to do something.
Yeah, if I can add, like, Mario definitely add tremendous value to the work that we do. Yeah, he's our face and our ears. Like, he is a spokesperson. Often, like, he goes out and tell people and help people to understand what we do. And Mario, of course, he loves robots, so he has lots of idea, and he helps them to understand that one of the things is really important to us is, like, we don't live the disease. I don't live with the disease, so I'm not an expert. I don't know what matters the most for the person living with the disease, but Mario does. And Mario, it's also a fabulous connector. Like what he says, that he knows all the people around that who are living a disease, or the people that are in their circle. So he brings them to us, so that allow us to do research. So in our lab, that we do research with people. We don't do research on people, right? So that's very different. So, like, having Mario with us, and that makes it possible to do this kind of research. So he brings people with lived experience, and we also have a focus on, like what Mario talked about. We want to focus on people that they're underserved and underrepresented in research. So people of color, people of minorities, and so those are really important people that we want to be able to find ways, innovative ways to include them in the research. And also people with, like, not just early stage, but also people in later stage of dementia. We want to see, like, how the technology that, like, what Albin's doing with the virtual reality and other robots. Albin also working on a robot in the care home. We want to see that how that can support people, like all kinds of people, leaving no one behind. Yeah.
Albin, you mentioned when you were speaking earlier that you don't have extended family in British Columbia. And, having working with patient engagement partners, most of them are older adults. And I've heard before with, working kind of intergenerationally that, some people, they almost become family and connected because they don't have that extended family here, and maybe see the individual as an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah. So first, just in case any of my family's listening, let me clarify when I said I don't have any extended family. That was just back then. My family, we come from India, so we all moved here. Since then, that has very much changed. I have a lot of family here now. My grandma from India, she's actually coming here very soon. So if she hears
Amazing.
this, yeah, just know I didn't forget about you. Yeah, but
Shout out to
that's
grandma.
yeah. Yeah, but to answer your question, yeah, absolutely, I would say so. Actually, there's a member of our lab. I don't know if I'm allowed to say her name for confidentiality, but she's Lily. She's literally the lab grandma. Everybody refers to her as our grandma. She's such a caring and thoughtful human being. The doctor mentioned the filming the how to drink water in different languages. It was actually her that did that video. Yeah, so absolutely, I would say we're just a big family. She always gives us food. If we're ever eating lunch, she'll put food in our plates. If we're doing research, she'll always be there to help us out. Yeah, so absolutely, I would say those connections exist.
It's really wonderful to see, how people are able to mix and do some work together, and that help to counteract the barrier of the cultural stigma and some misunderstanding or assumptions, because people in different culture may have different ways to look at dementia. So in Canada, like when we have like younger generation who may grew up here in Canada may have different ways to look at dementia, or what they learn from the public or from their educations about what dementia is about. But the older person who came from their own background, so they might also have like a lot of stigma about like not to talk about dementia. This is like there might some religious and superstitious different kind of beliefs that people do not want to talk about dementia. So we are trying to find creative ways so we can we can work together. And if we don't have a conversation and we don't start working with it, that's no way to remove that barrier. And I know that there are like immigrants and people with different cultural background that they if they don't talk about it, they don't have access, they can be very disadvantaged. They don't know the services available that they could help them. Domestic abuse, and people misunderstood. So I think it's really, really important that we include this group. And it's very clear in the statistics that people with color, we have more this group of people that are being diagnosed with dementia, but they're being silent, and they may not feel safe, or they might not have the opportunity to come out. And but now when we work with intergenerational research, and that might be like their children, and then Mario may bring the caregivers and the older person, so then we could come out and have conversation. We can find other ways. We don't have to name it dementia. We can name it brain health. Like, how can we improve brain health? Like, how can we become more healthy and for our brain, and how could we be more resilient, right? There's many different ways to work with it. Yeah.
Yeah, and Lillian, you had mentioned at the top of this episode that Idea Labs, it goes beyond the research into really about those social connections and the benefits that all of the players experience. I want to open it up to talking about the benefits of what it's like to be involved in the Ideas Lab and this type of intergenerational or patient engagement, patient-oriented research.
Yeah, over the years that we have learned a lot of things, and we learn as we go. And one of the virtual reality project that we did in the long-term care, we had a UBC student, like they would go on a regular basis, and once a week they will go to the care home to help the older person to use the headset. So again, these headset, these care homes are very multicultural. And so the student went in there to help them to watch videos about, maybe they were back in, like, watch videos that they were back in Hong Kong, so there's some cultural contacts. And so the student and the older person developed really close relationship. Yeah. So it was very interesting that, of course, it was very valuable for the student, and that they were able to learn so much, and they felt that they contribute something for the older person, because the older person in the long-term care, sometimes they don't have very much and not that many visitors would come to visit. So they always very look forward for the student to come to visit, and then they will do the virtual reality together, right? So it's beyond actually just watching the content, but about seeing each other, having that relationship, right? And so it was very helpful to see that, the benefit that's on the student side, but of course it's also very beneficial for the resident, the older person as well. And we also have learned the things that we have to do better, that when the research ends, and it was very hard for the students, because once they developed that relationship, the exit was not easy. Like, we can't just tell the older person that we're not coming again next week because the research ends, right? Yeah, so that kind of things that we also have to learn. How can we support students about their emotional beings when they go to do this work? Because maybe the population that we work with, some of them, they are in later stage of dementia. They're quite vulnerable, and so the students are likely to develop much closer relationship, because they really felt that they help the person, and the person really look forward. So that relationship becomes really tight. Yeah. Like, these are the things that we learn when we find the challenges and the opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a really important aspect of this work, because from a granting perspective as well, a lot of the grants that you receive there's limited funding. And then, so how do you keep something running beyond the length of your funding, your grant? So yeah, that's a great insight an insight. It is a fact that, how do you transition out of something like this?
And also, Lisa, if you might permit, if I may add, is the community engagement aspect that Idea Lab found that it is very helpful in recruiting patient engagement partners. So we found out that going out in community centers allows the student to get a real perspective of how to engage people living with dementia, their family members, and their care partners. So way back in 2020, we were invited to present our programs to dementia-friendly cafes, wherein we introduce our telepresence robots, our lovots, and other projects. And it's so surprising that some of them don't speak English, and yet they're so fascinated, and they treat them like their grandchildren or something that they really appreciate. So that is one area. And then these community centers suggested, hey, how about music? So the students found a little bit of grant money to start ukulele classes, because we thought, music is another area wherein they might enjoy the other people, social connections. As Lillian have mentioned, inclusivity. How do we look at, how do we reach out to the underserved group of our community, the homeless, the people with low income, and people with indigenous or people of color? So it was so fascinating that some of the people who are studying ukulele, we just taught them basic one-string strumming, and then people in the later stage of dementia cannot even remember one chord. But they look at their faces, and this is from feedback from their partners. They say, "Oh, he just tapped and then just knock on the ukulele by just thumping on the ukulele," and they feel the engagement of being together, people with the same kind of situation of capacity challenges. they felt so involved. So we were so lucky when they told us that, oh, we got another funding so that we can continue these ukulele lessons, and we will include older adults. And that is the fun of bringing technology and our research projects to the community center, is having the community and even the municipal policy makers to say, there is some benefit for all the adults with this kind of program. So we're very excited about it. And from the point of the view of the student, he's now writing a research paper on the findings about this 12-week course that we initiated. If I should add that a few months ago, Albin and I were talking about how do we reach out to the younger generation, and then we're so lucky that a mother sort of mentioned, "Hey, I would like my son who is very interested in robotics. Can he visit the Idea Lab?" So from there, Alvin and I have this concept of the K-12, which is kindergarten to the grade 12. So Albin is now working on how can we reach out to this group. I think, Albin, can you tell us more about this concept?
Yeah, so that project is very much still a concept. We haven't moved forward with that, but it's something that we picked up in previous research that we did. So I'll just say something that I think is really cool about Idea Lab, especially. Usually, research labs, they focus in on one specific project, one specific endeavor, and they put all the resources towards that. But we spread out. We focus on a lot of things that is focusing on a central goal, which is to help people living with dementia and really inform our decisions surrounding them. So in a few projects that I've been involved in, I've not heard anything about involving youth in this endeavor. So Mario and I had the idea, oh, what can we do to do this? As Mario said, there was a mother of a student. I won't say anything about the personal information, but her son is really into robotics, and I did idea that we have a lot of robots. I can talk about another project as well after that, but we were thinking, oh, is there anything that we can do to collaborate with the school that we can get students involved, maybe developing some technology, or maybe we can get some older adults involved as well to inform the decision that the students make about that technology. So really, they're getting a crash course on what we're doing here at Idea Lab, just condensed into a school year. Yeah.
Mhm. So in short, we thought about how do we reach out to the kindergarten. So we thought maybe they can make literature, maybe they can make booklets, or even short videos or drawings wherein they can explain what dementia is in their own language and in their own literature. And the same with the grade 7 to 12. Maybe they can do some robotics or some promotional materials in their own language, so that they can talk about it, because sometimes they do not want to be told, or sometimes the language we use is a bit difficult for them. We don't reach them out in the sense that maybe they just don't listen to the language we use. So Albin and I will say, hey, how about letting them do it in their own language? So we are now in the process of working with that school so that they can help the students get a better understanding about the dementia. As we all know, there's so much stigma associated with dementia that people rarely talk about it, or they hide it, or they do not even want to talk about it.
Yeah. Any final thoughts?
Yeah. The last thing, maybe like when you do these kind of work that's really cutting edge in robotics, and like it requires intergenerational work. Yeah. So it's the magic is when you bring young people that they have all kinds of creativity, and and they're very interested in like how this robot could help. And then you have to bring the older adults and tell them that what I want and what I need and what I would use and what I would not use and what I do not want. So I think then when we work together, and then the magic can happen.
my last word on this conversation is by giving another example of one robotic device that Idea Lab has worked on. It's called a telepresence robot, wherein a person, for example, a person living with dementia is in Vancouver, but her daughter is in Australia. So through an app, we're able to make her presence known, like she can control this telepresence robot and let it move around. And by the way, the patient does not need to do anything at all. So the daughter who is in Australia can help navigate the robot, control its movements, and say, "Good morning, Dad. Have you taken your breakfast? Have you taken a bath? Did you brush your teeth?" As if she's there. And sometimes these patients are very reluctant to talk with the staff. So when they hear the voice of their daughter, they will feel confident that somebody they know is talking to them, and it's just easier for them to comply with the daily activities of living. And just this simple act of brushing their teeth or having a glass of water. So that is very important. These robotic devices have uses in the long-term care home.
Absolutely. What a great way to kind of wrap up. I really appreciate the three of you being on the episode today, and good luck with your continued endeavors in creating wonderful technology and connections with your community. So thank you very much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Thank you. It was really great to talk about this.
Thank you. It was fun.
This Dementia Dialogue episode is released under a new partnership of the Alzheimer's Society of Ontario and the Centre for Education and Research on Aging and Health at Lakehead University. The Alzheimer's Society is excited to take on a new leadership role in producing and marketing our podcasts to strengthen the voice of people with lived experience of dementia. Dementia Dialogue continues to receive funding support through the Dementia Community Investment of the Public Health Agency of Canada. Please continue to follow us on Facebook. Our web address remains dementiadialogue.ca. We invite you to share your feedback on this episode with us. Please visit our website, dementiadialogue.ca, and click on About and scroll down to find the link to the listener survey. Your feedback helps us as we plan for upcoming episodes. If you wish to receive the survey by email, please send your request to dementiadialogue@alzon.ca.